Hello, you lovely lot. How you doing? Welcome to Martine Talks. It's been a while, right? I've been busy and I've also made some videos, but it just didn't make the cut. And I'm experimenting at the minute, which is a good thing, but it also takes time because the experiment is not just in what I'm delivering, how I'm delivering it, but the editing of it as well. So, and I'm learning, as you know. And this video might start to give you an indication of where I'm heading. But basically, it's, look, there's so much that inspires me out there, that gets my motor running, right? The passion going. And I need that to be able to kind of feel real and authentic. It's got to hit a note with me. And I get so much of that with my ADHD, I get overwhelmed and I'm like, oh, where do I start? Like, what bit? Well, and so that's part of it, but also it's finding that right kind of content that does hit home with me and what I want to share. So I'm going to just show you a video today, and this is about purpose, finding purpose and meaning. How do we know what our purpose is if we haven't found it? If we're one of those, I mean, some people are really lucky, they kind of find it, they're guided into it, it's kind of obvious when they're going through school, they know their path, and I always used to envy those people, but now I understand that my journey wasn't obvious, but it was happening, right, mostly without me knowing. And to find, becoming a teacher and starting my journey to become a lecturer was kind of just happened accidentally, and that was in my mid-20s, and so that's pretty lucky, right? I know people that are older that don't know, but I didn't know that was my final, because it was kind of a how can I put it, well, I didn't go straight into because it was only later I did psychology and trained to be a counsellor. It was only later that I got my sobriety, right? So, but I think it's really important because we can feel lost without it, right? We can feel really, really lost. And it's important to find that, because I think, as I've shared before, that it can really impact our lives in a positive way, in the sense that, helping our mental health, all those great stuff. I shared a video before, all the good stuff that we're told to do, meditate, green spaces, breathing, spend time for all that wonderful stuff. If we haven't got a purpose and meaning, it's kind of just surface stuff, and it's not going to really change things for us, right? It might lower the stress level or improve it in that moment, but if we're talking about sustaining our mental health and moving through and getting the best out of life, right, and having that energy and focus to move forward, takes us having that purpose and meaning. Who better to help me with this is, in this video, is Jordan Peterson. I love this guy. Not only through, he's just probably one of the greatest minds of our time, I believe. And that's my opinion. Not only is he that, but he also stands up for what he believes in, and that's really sort of, taking its toll on his life, but he keeps going, right? So those are the things that kind of I love about him, the characteristics that he has, and that's the resilience and the power to keep on. And he shows his emotion. I mean, there's a few videos where you see him crying, getting choked up, and I admire that, because it's when stuff really hits and it's not he doesn't cry when it's self-pity. It's not about when he's talking about himself, it's about when he's trying to get this message. It's like his frustration, he wants to get this message out. And so I'll probably use him and his videos throughout my YouTube channel. I couldn't do this YouTube channel without mentioning him. I think I've said that channel. Okay, my YouTube channel. Anyway, without me babbling on anymore, let's take a look at the first bit of the video.
There's this idea in Jungian psychology called the circumambulation. And Jung had this idea that you had a potential future self, which would be in potential everything that you could be. And that it manifests itself moment to moment in your present life by making you interested in things. And the things that you're interested in are the things that would guide you along the path that would lead you to maximal development. Now, it sounds like a metaphysical idea or or a mystical idea even, but it's not. It's not. It's a really profoundly biological idea. The idea is something like, well, you're set up so that you're automatically interested in those things that would fully expand you as a well-adapted creature. Well,
and this, this idea, so what he's saying is that, to know what our purpose is or our meaning, and to actually give us maximal development to be the potential future self, or the best that we actually could be. Everything that we could be is within inside us now, and actually how that manifests and presents is in what we're interested in. And the first time I come across this concept was when I was delivering self-development programs. I loved this, right? So there was lots of different aspects of this, but I actually ended up delivering it in Romania. I was doing train the trainer, so I was training other people to deliver this program. It's quite a powerful program, and they talked about this idea, but talking about, right, let's look at who you admire, and that could be someone in the public eye. It could be someone, it could be granddad, it could be a neighbor, it could be a friend, it could be someone that you know of. And, look at what it is that you admire about them. It might be their achievements, it might be that they're resilient, it might be that they stand up for what they believe in, dedication, their commitment, whatever that is, and we were getting people to kind of write that down, okay? So you'd think about these people, and then from that there'd come a theme of these characteristics or these certain achievements, and they'd go, oh, okay. And then we'd dare them to look at, well, the reason why you see those qualities and admire those qualities is because it's a reflection of what's inside you. You have an affinity to that. And of course, if they're in a low place or not in a good place, they're going to go, that's nothing like me. But you go, that's your potential self. That's what you're recognizing because it's there. Now, don't forget, we have a potential self. That doesn't mean that it's going to manifest. We have to do the work, right? And that means clearing the path for that. And that means spending time getting to know ourselves and looking at what we're interested in, and learning about who we are, what turns us on, what, flicks that switch. And that's what he's saying. And he's saying it's not, it sounds all mystical and that. Well, it's not. Biologically, we're set up like that, right? We automatically are interested in things that have an affinity with ourselves. So that's a good place to start. Let's watch some more.
Creature. Well, there's nothing radical about that idea. What else could possibly be the case? Unless there's something fundamentally flawed about you, that is what the situation would be. It's kind of interesting to think about how that would be manifest moment to moment, but the idea is something like, well, your interest is captured by those things that lead you down the path of development. Well, that better be the case. Okay, so that's fine. And so there's some utility in pursuing those things that you're interested in. That's the call to adventure, let's say. And the call to adventure takes you all sorts of places. Now, the problem with the call to adventure is, what the hell do you know? You might be interested in things that are kind of warped and bent. And often it's the case that when new parts of people manifest themselves and grip their interests, say, they do it very badly and shoddily. And so you stumble around like an idiot when you try to do something new. That's why the fool is the precursor to the savior from the symbolic perspectives, because you have to be a fool before you can be a master. And if you're not willing to be a fool, then you can't be a master.
And I love this too. And it's kind of like anything, and I think when we're younger, that's okay. Let's talk about, if I'm going to do something new, well, I've got to do it. When I'm new at something, then I'm going to do it badly first, and then I get better, and then practice makes perfect, that kind of concept. So I've got to, flail about and kind of get it wrong at first. And of course, when we're younger, we're kind of a bit more resilient to that. We're a bit more innocent, and so we find that easy. But as we get older, and especially, me thinking 52, that kind of thing, then you go, oh, have I got to start again now? What, and start doing it badly? And this being my YouTube channel, and do it in front of, well, only a few but as I grow, hopefully I'll grow and get more audience, but I have got to do it in front of people, right? People on my Facebook at the moment, I won't always be posting to Facebook. That's just my starter, right? I'm going to hope that down that, not hope, it will happen down, if I stay committed, that down the road I will get some traffic. I'll get some traffic by following the algorithm on YouTube, right? That's the plan anyway. But I'm still doing it in front of people. So I've got to be willing to be a fool and get it wrong and you know, make mistakes and, you know, pick the wrong content. Well, I don't think I'm picking the wrong content, but, you know, I'm still very green at this, and that's okay. But what he's saying is we've got to be able to be a fool first. You know, you've got to be a fool before you become a master. So there's the willingness to do that as well, to try something new.
So you're gonna it's an error error-ridden process, and that's also laid out in the Old Testament stories, because the first thing that happens to all these patriarchal figures when God kicks them out of their father's house when they're like 84 is that they run into all sorts of trouble, and some of it's social and some of it's natural and some of it's a consequence of their own moral inadequacy. So they're fools. But the thing that's so interesting is that despite the fact that they're fools, they're still supposed to go on the adventure, and that they're capable of learning enough as a consequence of moving forward on the adventure so that they straighten themselves out across time. And so it's something like this. So this circumambulation that Jung talked about was this continual, we'll return to this continual circling in some sense of who you could be. You might notice, for example, that there are themes in your life. You know, when you go back across your experiences, you see you kind of have your typical experience that sort of repeats itself. And there might be variation on it, like a musical theme, but it's like you're circling yourself and getting closer to yourself as you move across time. That's the circumambulation. Now, you remember that for a sec, because we'll go back to it. Okay, so imagine that something glimmers before you. It's an interest that's dawning, and you decide, well, first of all, you're paralyzed. You think, well, how do I know if I should pursue that? It's probably a stupid idea. And the proper response to that is, you're right, it probably is a stupid idea, because almost all ideas are stupid. And so the probability that as you move forward on your adventure that you're going to get it right the first time is zero. It's just not going to happen. And so then you might think, well, maybe I'll just wait around until I get the right idea, and which people do, right? So they're like 40-year-old, 13-year-olds, which is not a good idea. So they wait around until it's waiting for Godot, until they finally got it right. But the problem is you're too stupid to know when you've got it right. So waiting around isn't going to help, because even if the perfect opportunity manifested itself to you in your incomplete form, the probability that you would recognize it as the perfect opportunity is zero. You might even think it's the worst possible idea that you've ever heard of anywhere. Highly likely. Highly likely. So you have, there's, Nietzsche called that a will to stupidity, which I really liked. So, because he thought of stupidity as being it, you know, it's you have to take it into account fundamentally and work with it. And so you can take these tentative steps on your pathway to destiny, and you can assume that you're going to do it badly. And that's really useful, because you don't have to beat yourself up. It's pretty easy to do it badly. But the thing is, it's way better to do it badly than not to do it at all. And that's...
I love that message. You know, it's kind of the stupidity, you know, the will of stupidity that he talks about, Nietzsche. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's like anything's better than anything's better than sitting at home and doing fuck all. You got to get out there and do it, even if you do it badly. And actually, that's the Billy bonus, right? It's that you're allowed to do it badly at first. You've got permission to. That's how it works. Right? We don't sit at home and wait until we're excellent at something and then do it. It doesn't work like that. We need to get out and do it badly first, and be brave enough to take that on, to fail, to get it wrong, to make mistakes, because then that's what will lead to us gathering the knowledge and kind of learning, and then eventually becoming the masters at what we do and what we want to do, right? And what's kind of fits with us, what, that our purpose.
And that's a continual message that echoes through these historical stories in Genesis. It's like, these are flawed people. They should have got the hell out of their house way before they did. And they go out and they stumble around in tyranny and famine and self-betrayal and violence, but it's a hell of a lot better than just rotting away at home. And that's great, so that's good. And so why is that? Well, okay, so you start your path and you think that you're heading, towards your star. And so you go in that direction. And then, because you're here, the world looks a particular way, but then when you move here, the world looks different, and you're different as a consequence of having made that voyage. And so then you have to take it's almost like a 180-degree reversal. But it isn't, because, you've gone this far, and that's a long ways to get that far. But that's a lot farther than you would be if you just stayed where you were, waiting. And so it doesn't matter that you overshoot continually. Because as you overshoot, even if you don't learn what you should have done, you're going to continually learn what you shouldn't keep doing. And if you learn enough about what you shouldn't keep doing, then that's tantamount at some point to learning at the same time what you should be doing. So it's okay. So it's like this. Now, what's cool about it, though, I think, is that as you progress, the degree of overshooting starts to decline, right? And that we know that there's nothing hypothetical about that. As you learn a new skill, like even to play a song on the piano, for example, you overshoot madly. You're making all sorts of mistakes to begin with, and then the mistakes, they disappear, because it means that it's okay to wander around stupidly before you fix your destination. Now you see that echoed in Exodus, right? Because what happens is that the Egyptians, or the Hebrews, escape a tyranny, which is kind of whatever you do personally and psychologically when you escape from your previous set of stupidly held and ignorant and stubborn axioms. It's like, away from that tyranny. It's like, great, I freed myself from that. Well, then what? Well, you think, well, now I'm on the way. It's, no, you're not. Now you're in the desert, where you wander around stupidly, and worship the wrong things until you finally organize yourself morally again and head in the proper direction. So that's worth knowing too, because you think, well, I got rid of a lot of things, excess baggage that I didn't need in my life, and now everything's okay. It's like, no, it's not. You've got rid of a whole set of scaffolds that were keeping you in place, even though they were pathological. And now you have nothing, and nothing actually turns out to be better than something pathological, but you're still stuck with the problem of nothing. And that's exactly why Exodus is structured the way that it is. It's that you escape from a tyranny. It's, hooray, we're no longer slaves. Yeah, well, now you're nihilistic and lost. It's not necessarily an improvement. But it is see, it's also useful to know that, because you can also be deluded into the idea that, imagine that you're trying to become enlightened, which might mean to turn all those parts of you on that could be turned on. You think, well, that's just a linear pathway uphill. It's just from one success to another. No, it's not. It's like, here you are and you're not doing too badly, and the first step is a complete bloody catastrophe. It's worse. And then maybe you can pull yourself together and you hit a new plateau, and then that crumbles and shakes, and bang, it's worse again. And so, because part of the reason that people don't become enlightened is because it's punctuated by intermittent deserts, essentially, by intermittent catastrophes. And if you don't know that, well, then you're basically screwed, because you go ahead on your movement forward and you collapse, and you think, well, that didn't work, I collapsed. It's like, no, that's par for the course.
That's par for the course, right? It's this is what he's talking about with circumambulation, where it's just going round and round, and you kind of get somewhere and you grow a bit, and then you stumble, and then you get somewhere else, and then you stumble, and then it's like, that's kind of how it works, right? And he's saying, don't be deluded by going, hey, I've got to this point, it's all going to be success from here. It just doesn't work like that. But that's what builds our character. And this is what I always say, is that, supporting West Ham builds character. We need to kind of have all those different varied emotions, all of them are valid, and we need to have all of them to be able to grow, to become wholesome, to become resilient, to understand what life's all about, right? And so when self-development happens, when we decide that that's what we want and we move forward, be prepared for it. Be prepared to take it on and see it all as valid, experience to add to you and to help you grow in character.
Of course. It's not indication that you failed, it's just indication that it's really hard. And that when you learn something, you also unlearn something. And the thing you unlearned is probably useful, and unlearning it actually is painful. You know, let's say if you have to get out of a bad relationship. There isn't any relationship that's 100% bad. And so when you jump out of it, well, maybe you're in better shape, but you're still lonesome and disoriented, and you don't know what your past was, and you don't know what your present is, and you don't know what your future is. That's why people stay with the devil they know instead of, you know, looking for the devil they don't know. So anyways, the fact that you're full of faults doesn't mean you have to stop. And thank God for that. That's a really useful thing. And the fact that you're full of faults doesn't mean that you can't learn. And so you can posit an ideal, and you're going to be wrong about it, but it doesn't matter, because what you're right about is positing the ideal, moving towards it. If the actual ideal isn't conceptualized perfectly, well, first, surprise, surprise, because like, what are you going to do that's perfect? So it doesn't matter that it's imperfect. It just matters that you do it and that you move forward. So that's really positive news as far as I'm concerned, because you can actually do that, right? You can do it badly. Anyone can do that. So that's useful. Okay, so like if you were an efficient person, you would have just done that. But you're not. But who cares? You know, you still end up in the same place. And maybe the trip is even more interesting. Who knows? Probably too interesting. Jung. I began to understand that the goal of psychic development, by which he means psychological development or spiritual development, is the self. There's no linear evolution. There's only a circumambulation of the self, a getting closer. It's like you're spiraling into something. Something like that. And the thing that you're spiraling into recedes as you move towards it and gets more and more sophisticated and well developed as you move towards it, because you're not going to run out of goals, right? No matter how much you have your act together, there's probably, undoubtedly, 30 dimensions along which you could get your act together a lot more. So, and some of those aren't even conceivable to you when you're in your initial uncarved state, let's say.
So what's the message here? Well, let's do it badly, right? It's better than not doing it at all. And what Carl Jung was saying was that, you know, it's not a linear process, and that you're going to stumble, you're going to fall. That's all part of the deal. And to understand where your path might be is listening to yourself. That's the only way, you know. Know thyself. That's what I always say from Socrates. And it's about, you know, if I take notice of the themes in my life, what am I interested in? Who inspires me? Who do I look at and admire? What is it that I admire in that person? Let me write that down. I see what that is, you know, the dedication, the commitment, the resilience. And then recognize that that's part of you. And maybe if you don't recognize it, it's because it's there potentially and it hasn't been able to manifest yet. And we haven't unlocked that yet. Depending on how old you are. But I don't think age matters, really. If I did, I wouldn't be doing this, right? So I'm going to continue to do this badly and get better and better, but I enjoy it, and I hope I'm giving value. I want to thank people that reach out to me, and they do, and there might be days when I go, and I know that's part of it as well. Am I doing the right thing? And is this right? Is this, you know, because it can be a lot of pressure as well. And actually, I always get a little message from someone and they mean so much. Thank you. If you'd like to like my video, that would be wonderful. Comment, yes please, and subscribe. It's free. That would be wonderful. And I will continue. I don't plan on stopping. When he said, you know, like, just because you're doing it wrong doesn't mean you stop. I know that much. No, this is definitely what I want to do. It always has been. It's and I'm growing and experimenting and enjoying the journey. So thank you, and I hope to see you in the next video. Look after yourselves, guys. Mwah.